Blade Runner 2049 came out in 2017, so I guess I'm about 6 years late with this movie review.
I know.
But truth be told, I found the movie unwatchable at my first viewing and switched it off. That was years ago. But then, quite by chance, there I was on a long flight home with nothing better to do, so I ordered a scotch and began watching, and managed to suffer through to the end. There is no way I can match the profound level of analysis this movie has received on the internet. I am up against some pretty deep thinkers.
But the conversation takes a turn when Kay says this.
I prefer to keep an empty stomach until the hard part of the day is done.
This marks a subtle change in the tone of the conversation, as Kay confirms that this isn't just a friendly visit. And so, of course, once he says this, we immediately cut to a boiling pot, visually indicating this increased tension.
Whoa. So if delving into the deep meanings and profound symbolisms in the plot, or the director's commitment to social justice, is not the way to go, then what about a superficial review? What do the surfaces have to say? Let's take the first impression that I had years ago and try to explain where the need to turn this mess off came from. For those who didn't know, Blade Runner 2049 is a sequel to the 1982 science fiction film directed by Ridley Scott, starring Harrison Ford, Rutger Hauer, and Sean Young. It is an adaptation of Philip K. Dick's 1968 novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? The film is set in the dystopian future Los Angeles in 2019, in which synthetic humans known as replicants are bioengineered by the powerful Tyrell Corporation to work on space colonies. When a fugitive group of advanced replicants led by Roy Batty, Hauer, escapes back to Earth, burnt-out cop Rick Deckard, Ford, reluctantly agrees to hunt them down. The original Blade Runner is a standalone, better film. The film noir style works, primarily because people in 1982 were more interesting. And let me get one of my major themes on the table right now. Science fiction is almost never about the future. It is about the present, and any science fiction film made in the 50s or 60s will tell you much more about those times than the 33rd century. Likewise, the 1982 Blade Runner tells us that hard-boiled, cynical archetypes were still recognizable. Deckard is cold and emotionless, but not inhuman. He isn't tough because he is a replicant, or at least he doesn't have to be, and doesn't demand Rachel kiss him because he is a monster, but because he is a real flesh and blood man with faults and virtues. He is, as we were in 1982, projected into that dank, sopping, leftover world where the rich live above the clouds, the lucky ones are already in the space colonies, and working guys on Earth struggle to order some noodles in peace. What is really fascinating about the 1982 version is that the characters, human and replicants, still seem to value old-fashioned virtues like friendship, love,
you play beautifully,
beauty, style, honor, fair play, even filial loyalty.
I've done questionable things.
They all make an appearance. And did I say style was a virtue? I think I did. You can't watch the original without feeling that deep down that there is something good in humanity. My, how things have changed. In 2049, or should I say 2023, friendship is replaced by utilitarianism, using. Love is replaced big time by sex. Beauty is replaced by ugliness. Style is replaced by shock, decadence, and nihilism. Honor is replaced by betrayal. Fair play is replaced by a WWF or evil villain speech. Filial loyalty is replaced by superficiality and crude sentimentality. Moving through the surfaces of the movie is a journey through the world of 2023. Not 2049. We have, of course, the protein farms. Enjoy your bugs. A particular favorite of mine that you can find in almost every production today is represented by Lieutenant Joshi, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Kay's superior, played by Robin Wright. This is what we call the head switch. Take a cultural archetype, or an inherited mental image, in this case the hard-nosed, hard-drinking sergeant, the tough guy who will bust your ass, but surprises you at times with his heart of gold. The reason we can call this archetype an archetype is that it is instantly recognizable. We know this guy, and I mean guy. He really exists in our families, our workplaces, and at any bar in the West. He is sitting there, keeping his thoughts to himself and knocking back shots of hard liquor. The moderns who run Hollywood do not believe in our archetypes. They do not believe in our experience or senses. Take the archetype, pluck its head off, and, in this case, gender bend it into a woman. We've seen this all the time. Gender, race, epoch, all interchangeable cogs. That is essentially Wright's performance. The problem is it does not work. It is forced. It is fake. It dies on the screen. Why? It's not because this woman doesn't exist somewhere. There are tough women in trench coats chugging hard liquor out there, I'm sure. But you will have to write one hell of a good plot to make that work, as the type does not arise naturally from life, and accordingly the character lacks life. No matter how much you gender or race bend, simply replacing the head doesn't work. It might be politically expedient, but it remains an artistic fail. Fact is, women, no matter how tough, don't actually behave this way. Women aren't first into a burning building. Women don't throw themselves in front of their boyfriends to stop a bullet, although they would most certainly sacrifice themselves for their children. Next, I have to say I actually quite like Ryan Gosling as Kay, but not for the reasons intended. His emotionless, quiet subservience in the face of a brutal, incoherent, sterile, depressing society in which he struggles to find any meaning in existence is bang on. This is reflected in the lives of millions in the West, especially young men. What exactly am I here for? There is probably not much difference between Kay running around killing rogue replicants of the old series and millions of cubicle dwellers or working men who, no matter how long they work, how hard they work, how much abuse they take, will never be able to buy a house, can't see the point of marriage or children, and retreat to a digital reality of video games, porn, and virtual girl toys. Gosling's acting, little more than reflected light, works here. But again, remember, Blade Runner 2049 is not about the future. It is about the present. When you see Joy, the holographic girlfriend, think OnlyFans and incels. On the bright side, you can always hire Mariette, or Marionette, the prostitute, to pretend she's your holographic girlfriend. Everything is for sale, even love, if you can call it that. You can generally spot a society where the people are powerless by the level of meaningless violence in their entertainment. Think Chinese kung fu movies, gladiatorial games in Rome, or the UFC today. This movie does not disappoint. The violence is pointless and unnecessary and lacks even a moment of drama or suspense. Wow, Kay beat Love, the mean girl replicant. Harrison Ford didn't drown. Oh, one big surprise after another. The child of Deckard and the replicant Rachel is what you might expect in 2023. Well, of course she is immunocompromised. Well, sure, that's probably because we are messing with the environment, polluting the water, messing around with nature and producing offspring that have to live in a bubble. But that's okay. The state will take care of you, give you a job, a weird job, but a job, and spend millions on pharmaceuticals to make your life almost livable. The progressive conception of linear history is also resolved in this movie. Yes, Blade Runner 2049 is that profound. Progressives borrowed from Christianity the idea that history is linear, has a beginning, middle, and an end, and the end is, of course, utopia. The alternative, of course, is a cyclical view of history, one in which societies rise, become rich, then become decadent, and then collapse entirely and are replaced. How does one view Blade Runner as a world going in the right direction? It is clearly in decline. This place is a mess. The solution, which you see repeated over and over since the Enlightenment and French Revolution, is, and I quote, the freedom fighter. Oh yes, everything looks bad, but after the revolution, and after we get rid of the mean patriarchs and racists, things will be wonderful, and progress will continue on its way to a post-hybrid human replicant paradise. This device, a true deus ex machina, lowering a god onto the stage with a machine to solve a plot problem, is a solution out of nowhere from above, and is typical of a theater in decline, which we most certainly are. The ending is particularly decadent. Is there a movie with a more poignant death scene than Roy Batty's last moments in the original? More human than human, he loves life so much that in the end he saves Deckard, his nemesis, the killer of his great love, Pris. Then this.
Ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the 10-houser gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain.
Blade Runner 2049 answers the question, what does a young man in 2023 say at the ultimate moment, facing execution at dawn, or mortally wounded on the battlefield? What will his last words be? Well, for one, we have to be different, so instead of rain, voila, it's snowing. That is almost as brilliant as the boiling water bit. But then what does the dying man in 2023 say? Well, of course, he says nothing. Because quite evidently, not only does Blade Runner 2049 have nothing to say, neither does man in 2023. But although K doesn't say anything, perhaps he is thinking deep thoughts. Perhaps he's sorry that he will never see the next generation holographic GF. Or happy, at least, that his death will help fight climate change. Or that he will get to go to transhuman heaven and meet and perhaps be joined with his beloved program Joy. More likely, though, if I know 2023, K isn't thinking of anything at all.